Even back in the olden days, women defied convention and carved their own paths. They were bold, they were daring, and they were unforgettable. Meet the daring desperados who shattered the glass ceiling of the Wild West. These women were more than just pretty faces. They were outlaws, lawbreakers, and renegades who stood toe-to-toe with the toughest cowboys. Here then are the top 10 most notorious women of the Wild West. Number 10. Pearl Hart. Hart, originally named Pearl Taylor, was born in Lindsay, Ontario, Canada. Growing up in an affluent and religious family, she received an excellent education. At 16, she attended a boarding school where she became infatuated with a young man named Hart, who was often described as a rake, drunkard, or gambler. Hart had a turbulent relationship with her husband, reconciling and separating from him multiple times. During their time together, they had 2 children, a boy and a girl, whom Hart sent to live with her mother in Ohio. In 1893, the couple visited the Chicago World's Fair, where Hart worked as a midway barker while being captivated by the cowboy lifestyle showcased in Buffalo Bill's Wild West show. When the fair concluded, she left her husband once again and boarded a train bound for Trinidad, Colorado, possibly accompanied by a piano player named Dan Bandman. Inspired by Annie Oakley, Hart adopted a life of crime, employing her sharpshooting skills for illicit purposes rather than for entertainment. During this period, she worked as a cook and a singer, possibly supplementing her income as a demi-mondaine or even engaging in prostitution. There are also accounts suggesting that she developed a fondness for cigars, liquor, and morphine. During a financial struggle, Hart met a man named Joe Boot. Together, they carried out a stagecoach robbery. Disguised as a man, Hart and Boot embarked on their daring escapade, which would later be known as one of the final recorded stagecoach robberies in the U.S. However, their plans went awry and they eventually became lost. The pair was apprehended, and during her trial, Hart defiantly declared, quote, "I shall not consent to be tried under a law in which my sex had no voice in making." Though she served part of her sentence, she found herself pregnant while in prison, leading to a swift pardon from the governor. After her release, the rest of Hart's life remains shrouded in mystery. Number 9. Annie Oakley. Annie Oakley was born in 1860 in a log cabin near Woodland, Ohio, which is now called Willowdale. The cabin is situated less than 2 miles northwest of Woodland and approximately 5 miles east of North Star in Darke County. In 1981, the Annie Oakley Committee placed a stone-mounted plaque near the location, marking her birth 121 years earlier. Annie Oakley's parents, Susan Wise and Jacob Mosey, were Quakers of English descent from Hollidaysburg, Blair County, Pennsylvania. They married in 1848 and later relocated to Patterson Township, Darke County, Ohio, around 1855, where they initially rented a farm that they eventually purchased with a mortgage. Due to financial difficulties following her father's death, Annie's childhood education was a struggle. However, she did attend school sporadically during her later childhood and adulthood. At the age of 9, on March 15, 1870, she and her sister Sarah Ellen were admitted to the Darke County Infirmary. In her autobiography, Annie recounts being placed under the care of the infirmary's superintendent, Samuel Crawford Eddington, and his wife Nancy. They taught her sewing and decorative skills. In the spring of 1870, she was bound out to a local family who promised her 50 cents per week, the equivalent of $12 in 2022, and an education, but the reality was far from what she was promised. The couple had actually wanted someone for manual labor such as pumping water and cooking, and Annie endured mental and physical abuse during her time with them, lasting for about 2 years. When Annie turned 15, she participated in a shooting match against traveling show marksman Frank E. Butler, and she emerged victorious. Later on, Annie and Frank got married and eventually joined Buffalo Bill's Wild West show. Annie Oakley gained fame for her exceptional sharpshooting skills and performed in front of royalty and heads of state. She actively advocated for women to serve in combat roles in the U.S. Armed Forces and wrote a letter to President William McKinley offering the services of a company of 50 lady sharpshooters who would provide their own arms and ammunition if the United States went to war with Spain. Number 8. Mary Fields. Stagecoach Mary, armed with guns and clad in men's clothing, proved formidable against potential male thieves. Mary Fields, the first African-American woman and the second woman in the U.S. to deliver mail, gained a reputation for her fondness for liquor and her sharpshooting skills. Born into slavery around 1832 in Hickman County, Tennessee, Fields attained freedom after the conclusion of the American Civil War. She secured employment as a chambermaid on the Robert E. Lee steamboat, where she crossed paths with Judge Edmund Dunn and eventually served in his household. Following the passing of Dunn's wife, Fields, along with the late wife's 5 children, was sent to live with Dunn's sister, Mother Mary Amadeus, who held the position of Mother Superior at an Ursuline convent in Toledo, Ohio. In 1884, Mother Amadeus was assigned to establish a school for Native American girls in Montana Territory at St. Peter's Mission, located west of Cascade. Learning of Amadeus's illness with pneumonia, Fields hastily journeyed to Montana to provide care. Thankfully, Amadeus recovered, and Fields decided to remain at St. Peter's Mission, taking on various tasks typically associated with men's work at the time, including maintenance, repairs, supply procurement, laundry, gardening, freight transportation, crop cultivation, chicken tending, and building repairs. Fields eventually assumed the role of forewoman. However, an argument ensued, resulting in Fields' expulsion. In 1895, she obtained a contract from the Postal Service to serve as a star route carrier, becoming the first African-American woman to work for the U.S. Postal Service. Unwavering in her fearless demeanor, she carried multiple firearms, notably concealing a .38 Smith & Wesson beneath her apron, providing protection for herself and the mail against wolves, thieves, and bandits. Accompanied by horses and a mule named Moses, she faithfully completed her daily route, earning her the nickname Stagecoach Mary due to her preferred mode of transportation. If the snow proved too deep for her horses, Fields resorted to delivering mail on snowshoes while shouldering the mail sacks. Number 7. Belle Starr. Myra Maybelle Shirley, better known as Belle Starr, was born on February 5, 1848, on her father's farm near Carthage, Missouri. She was often called May by her family. Her father, John Shirley, enjoyed success in farming, raising wheat, corn, hogs, and horses. Despite being considered the black sheep of a prosperous Virginia family that had relocated to Indiana, he married and divorced twice. Belle's mother, Elizabeth Eliza Hatfield Shirley, was John Shirley's third wife and had a distant connection to the Hatfield family involved in the infamous family feud. In the 1860s, Belle's father sold the farm and moved the family to Carthage, where he purchased a livery stable and blacksmith shop located on the town square. Belle received a comprehensive education, including classical studies, and she acquired piano skills. She graduated from the Carthage Female Academy, a private school that her father had helped establish. However, Belle's rebellious nature soon emerged. She associated with outlaws and engaged in horse theft. As her reputation grew, Belle maintained an air of refinement. While indulging in whiskey and riding her horse at high speeds, she always rode side saddle. She wielded a gun to fend off men who harassed her. In an interview with the Dallas Morning News, she declared herself a friend to any bold and daring outlaw. Tragically, Belle Starr met a mysterious death in 1889. Number 6. Sonora Webster Carver. In 1923, Webster responded to an advertisement by William Doc Carver seeking a diving girl, securing a significant place in circus history. Her role involved mounting a running horse as it reached the top of a 40-foot, sometimes 60-foot tower, then gracefully descended on its back as it plunged into an 11-foot pool of water below. She quickly became a sensation and rose to prominence as the leading diving girl in Doc Carver's team. During her time with the show, Sonora developed a romantic relationship with Albert Floyd Carver, Doc's son, whom she eventually married in October 1928. Following Doc Carver's passing in 1927, Al took over the show's management. Sonora's sister, Arnett Webster French, followed in her footsteps and joined the show as a horse diver in 1928. Sonora and the team embarked on extensive travels across the country, showcasing their performances. However, tragedy struck in 1931 when Sonora suffered retinal detachment, resulting in her blindness. The injury occurred when she hit the water off balance with her eyes open while diving with her horse named Red Lips on Atlantic City's Steel Pier, the act's permanent venue since 1929. Remarkably, Sonora continued diving with horses until 1942, displaying incredible resilience. Arnett, on the other hand, left the show in 1935. Sonora's remarkable life story served as the inspiration for the popular movie Wild Hearts Can't Be Broken. However, Sonora expressed disappointment with the portrayal of her life in the film. Number 5. Cathay Williams. Cathay Williams, born in 1844 in Independence, Missouri, had an enslaved mother and a free father. As a young girl, she worked as a house slave on the Johnson plantation near Jefferson City. When Union forces occupied the city during the Civil War, captured slaves like Williams were designated as contraband and served in support roles for the military. At 17 years old, she volunteered as an army cook and washerwoman, accompanying the infantry across the country. Williams served under General Philip Sheridan, witnessing the Red River Campaign and the Battle of Pea Ridge. Although women were prohibited from serving in the military, Williams enlisted in the U.S. Regular Army under the name William Cathay in 1866. Assigned to the 38th U.S. Infantry Regiment, she disguised herself as a man and passed a basic medical examination. Despite contracting smallpox and facing physical strain, she continued her service in New Mexico. Eventually, her true identity was discovered by the post surgeon, leading to an honorable discharge in 1868. Williams then joined an all-black regiment that later became part of the renowned Buffalo Soldiers. After the war, Williams relocated to Colorado, where she got married. However, her husband betrayed her by stealing her money and a team of horses. Williams took action and had him arrested. There are also rumors suggesting that she owned a boarding house during her time in the Western region. Number 4. Eleanor Dumont. Eleanor Dumont, also known as Madame Mustache, was a famous gambler during the California Gold Rush in the American West. Her background remains uncertain, with some speculating that she was born as Simone Jules in New Orleans to French Creole parents. In 1854, she arrived in Nevada City from California, adopting the name Eleanor Dumont and taking advantage of the fascination with French women at the time. Dumont established herself as a skilled card dealer in San Francisco before opening her own prestigious gambling parlor. She maintained high standards, only admitting clean and well-groomed men, and served champagne instead of whiskey. Her success allowed her to buy a ranch and engage in cattle raising. However, her life took a turn when she met a man named Jack McKnight, whom she trusted and loved. She entrusted her property to him, but he turned out to be a con man who drained her finances, leaving her in significant debt. Devastated by this betrayal, she sought revenge and killed McKnight with 2 shotgun blasts. There are numerous stories of Dumont's bravery, including foiling robbers and confronting steamboats at gunpoint. Unfortunately, as her debts mounted, she eventually took her own life. Number 3. Laura Bullion. Laura Bullion, an infamous figure of the Old West, had a rather mysterious background. While there is uncertainty surrounding her exact birth date, most sources indicate that she was born in Knickerbocker, near Mertzon in Irion County, Texas. However, according to information from the 1880 and 1900 federal census, it's possible that Laura Bullion was born on a farm in Palarm, near Conway, in Faulkner County, Arkansas. It is also suggested that she may have grown up in Tom Green County, Texas. Conversely, some claim that Laura Bullion was actually born in Kentucky in 1873. Laura Bullion's life of crime might have been predestined, considering that her father was a Native American bank robber. While working as a prostitute in Texas, she became associated with the Wild Bunch Gang, led by Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Within the gang, she earned the nickname Rose of the Wild Bunch. Her fellow outlaws included the Sundance Kid, Blackjack Ketchum, and Kid Curry. During the 1890s, she had a romantic relationship with another outlaw named Ben Kilpatrick, also known as the Tall Texan, who had connections with her father's criminal past. Laura Bullion played various roles within the gang, such as selling stolen goods and forging checks. It is even rumored that she disguised herself as a man to assist in their heists. However, her criminal activities came to an end when she was arrested in St. Louis, Missouri in early November 1901. She was found guilty and received a 5-year prison sentence for her involvement in the Great Northern Train robbery. After serving 3 years and 10 months of her punishment, she was released from the Missouri State Penitentiary in Jefferson City on September 19, 1905. Number 2. Bridget Mason. Bridget "Biddy" Mason, an American hero, overcame the challenges of enslavement to become a prominent figure in Los Angeles during the 1850s and 1860s. She not only became a respected citizen, but also a landowner, and in 1872 she founded the first African Methodist Episcopal Church in Los Angeles. Mason was initially given the name Bridget without a surname, but she later acquired the nickname Biddy. She experienced ownership by slaveholders in Georgia and South Carolina before being returned to Mississippi. Her final owner, Robert Marion Smith, was a Mormon convert from Mississippi who relocated his family and enslaved individuals to the West in response to the call of the church. They played a role in establishing a Mormon community in what is now Salt Lake City, Utah, which was then part of Mexico. In 1851, Smith decided to move his family once again, this time to San Bernardino, California, with a caravan of 150 wagons. Despite Brigham Young's warning that slavery was illegal in California, Smith brought Mason and other enslaved people to the new Mormon settlement. Along the journey, Mason encountered Charles H. and Elizabeth Flake Rowan, a free black couple who encouraged her to legally challenge her slave status upon reaching California. Fearing the loss of his enslaved individuals, Smith attempted to relocate to Texas, a slave state, but his departure was hindered by the Owens. One of Robert Owens' sons was romantically involved with Mason's 17-year-old daughter, and Owens reported the illegal holding of slaves to the Los Angeles County Sheriff. The sheriff assembled a posse, apprehending Smith's wagon train in Cajon Pass, California. After successfully obtaining her freedom through a court decision in 1856, Mason settled in Los Angeles and pursued a career as a nurse and midwife. 10 years later, she purchased her own land for $250, becoming one of the first black women in Los Angeles to own land. Utilizing her business acumen, she sold a portion of the land for $1,500 and constructed rental spaces on the remaining section. Over time, she accumulated a fortune exceeding $300,000. But rather than hoarding her wealth, she generously donated to charities and dedicated herself to helping the poor and needy. In 1872, Mason established the first African Methodist Episcopal Church, which continued its mission of assistance even after her passing. Her legacy as a courageous individual who triumphed over adversity and dedicated herself to uplifting others remains an inspiration. Number 1. Katherine Haroney. Katherine Haroney, known as Big Nose Kate, earned her nickname to distinguish herself from another prostitute named Kate. Her reputation was built on her unwavering stubbornness and remarkable toughness. Throughout the 1880s, she wandered across the Midwest, explaining that her choice to work as a prostitute stemmed from her preference for independence, not being tied down to any one man or dwelling. In 1860, Katherine's father, Dr. Haroney, along with his second wife Katharina and their children, emigrated from Hungary to the United States. They arrived in New York City aboard the German ship Bremen in September. Settling in Davenport, Iowa in 1862, the Haroney family made their home in a predominantly German neighborhood. Tragedy struck in 1865 when both Dr. Haroney and his wife passed away within a month of each other. Catherine, also known as Mary Catherine, and her younger siblings found themselves under the care of Gustav Sussmiel, her brother-in-law, but were later entrusted to attorney Otto Smith in 1870. The 1870 U.S. Census reveals that Catherine's 15-year-old sister, Wilhelmina, or Wilma, lived and worked as a domestic for Austrian-born David Palter and his Hungarian household. In 1876, Kate moved to Fort Griffin, Texas, where in 1877 she met Doc Holliday. A notable incident in Catherine's life occurred when Holliday was arrested for killing a man in self-defense and was subsequently locked up. In a bold move, Kate set fire to an old building, creating chaos as the flames threatened to engulf the entire town. While the townsfolk were preoccupied with combating the blaze, she courageously held the guard watching over Holiday at gunpoint, allowing her lover to escape. They managed to evade capture and remained together until Holiday's death. Katherine herself lived until November 2nd, 1940, reaching the impressive age of 90. And there you have it, folks. The 10 most notorious women of the Wild West. The Wild West was a land of opportunity where these remarkable women defied societal norms, shattered glass ceilings, and carved their own paths. Alright, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.